Awesome. Herman, bro, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, man. No, it's the first time we've had a bit of an entourage sitting in as well. We got a crew of three of your boys, three of the crew here, which is pretty exciting. Yeah, it's sweet. Before we get started, man, do you mind just introducing yourself? Who is Herman?
So I'm Herman Jagpal. I'm 25 years young. I'm from Hamilton, and I run a brand called Skip the Boat. It's like we do clothing, we do events. It's just a movement for the youth, I guess. But
that's awesome, bro. Yeah, and I'm wearing one of your t-shirts at the moment, which is really sick. But I wanted to unpack just how you first started into your journey into entrepreneurship, and how were you one of those cliche like Gary V kids, like selling like lemons at a lemonade stand when you're like 7? Like, when did you first start thinking that you got those sort of business traits?
Honestly, it was probably like at the age of, I would say like 13, 14. I used to edit like Call of Duty videos.
Oh, nice.
And from that, like I relate a lot of the stuff that I learned from that into what I do now, because it was almost like a business. So, there was this whole scene of people that were like graphic designers, video editors, and it kind of just like put in small little aspects that I use now like all the time, and then I just picked up from the stuff that I used then, and I just kind of amplified it and relate it back to the stuff that I do now. So I feel like that was kind of like the early stages, and then I remember at some point in high school, or maybe just after high school, I was real into football, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna start like a business where I set up these like football 5-a-side games, and I'll just like go around, I'll get a bunch of people to play, and I'll charge everyone like $10, and I'll just buy this like cheap equipment, and I'll keep on doing it. And then I started doing that, and we had people come through, and then my sister was like, you know that you have to pay tax on that, right? And I was like, oh, okay.
What's tax?
Fuck that. I was like, yeah, I was like, nah, like I'm good. I just quit it. Then I was like, I can't be bothered.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like those were kind of like the early stages. Other than that, yeah, I don't think there was really anything else that kind of pushed me to that direction at all.
That's cool, man. And I remember, yeah, like the COD days. So were you like recording the clips, editing them, putting them up on YouTube, like 360 no scopes, all of that stuff?
Yeah, it was all that stuff. Yeah, yeah. I remember begging my dad to buy me like it was essentially like a PVR. It was like to record all my footage and everything. And I was like, Dad, please, like I need this. Like you just don't understand. Like this is gonna help me out so much. And he's like, why don't you just use like your phone and just film? I was like, no, because it has to be like high quality. Because I have to edit it, and I need everyone to be, like see it and be like, holy shit, this is something incredible. Yeah,
it's wicked, bro. And how did you land onto Skip the Boat?
So the idea for it, I think it stemmed from, do you remember like way back in the day, especially on YouTube, where you would have to find like uncopyrighted music for like all your videos? So I found like a real joy in trying to find these artists that were super, super underrated and no one had really like heard of. But to me, I was like, whoa, these artists are super, super talented. So kind of artists like Logic way before he blew up, and like all these guys like Skizzy Mars and shit. And I just remember feeling like this is like the coolest thing ever. Like not many people know of these artists, but I do, and the others that do, it's just like the coolest little community of people that like, yo, if you know, you know. So it kind of stemmed from that, and then I think it was at uni where it really hit, where I was like going out to parties and stuff and going to the club, and I was like, all of this is like, I just seemed so unfazed. I was like, this is so boring. Like this is not the stuff that I want to hear. I really wish someone would be doing events where I could hear the stuff that I'm really into. So there was a friend of mine that said, then why don't you just do it? And it just kind of clicked to me. I was like, okay, maybe I should just do it. Because I would talk about it every single week. And I was like, I'm talking, but I'm not really doing anything to like justify the words that I'm speaking. So it was summer of 2019, 2020. And I said, fuck it, I'm just going to go all in. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, that's cool too. But at least I tried. And yeah, I mean, I just took inspiration from the stuff that I had learned previously. And the biggest thing for me was just to learn as I went. So everything I did, I would make a million mistakes, but I would learn something from it. And I knew that if I kept on going with that, eventually I would learn like 100 new things and 1,000 new things. And that was just going to improve the way that I did everything.
I love that, bro. And so you were at university at the time. What were you studying?
I studied sports management.
Yeah, so very different to what you're doing now.
Yeah, well, I was really into football. So like my big thing was like, I don't care what I'm doing. I just want a job in football. So that was my big thing. And then as I was doing the course, I slowly started to like lose interest in it. And I started to shift that interest from the sports side. And I still took things from what I was learning because it was kind of like the business side of sport. So I took a lot of like business aspects in terms of like marketing. And I took that and I kind of just applied it into a different sense of like social media and music and clothing.
That's nice. Something I'm really keen to unpack with you as well, and I think it's quite genius what you've done with Skip the Boat, is you've really blended your customer base and your marketing and your following through the use of like live events and running, these massive gigs right across the country. And that's what you're in Wellington for. You got a gig, I think tomorrow, and then you're down to, is it Christchurch, then Dunedin? So you've been able to like blend both of your passions, but really that's enabled like a really massive, almost cult-like following of your brand, which you don't really see through other companies. Like I love Ugly. They're like, that's like my favorite clothing brand, but they don't have that. I guess they do this. That's probably not the best example because they got like a podcast. You can learn more about V, the founder. But a lot of those other brands, all you see is the fashion label, right? But you're like enabling the community to sort of get involved into the culture, which then, drives and supports your clothing company. So it's like, I just want you, can you unpack the sort of thought process around blending clothing, what you're doing with Skip the Boat, plus this whole other element, which people might not even know about. They might just see your t-shirts and your clothing, but you've actually got all of this other stuff behind the scenes.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess it's kind of in like two aspects. It's like one where for me, the clothing stuff would have never happened unless COVID hit, because the initial idea for the brand was always solely just music events and concerts. COVID hit, and I didn't want that momentum to like disappear, even though it was like a very little piece of like momentum. There was still something. So I was like, okay, I need a way to kind of keep this alive. I still need to be doing something. So I spent the entirety of like lockdown just learning about how clothing is produced, how you do it, how you can create designs and put them on a t-shirt, like the whole process. And I just spent all that time doing that. And then when we were almost out of lockdown, I remember I released like my first collection, and people just seemed to love it, and it did really, 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 really well. And it worked so well because I think music and fashion are so like intertwined, where people that really love music are super into fashion and vice versa. So it kind of allowed two of these different kind of audiences to kind of merge into one.
It's the culture, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then the other aspect of everything was in terms of like the BTS stuff we're doing, like the vlog episodes and kind of just showing people like the journey and the process. I really, really value that because one, it's just a personal thing for me where I really want to be able to see that in 5-10 years time, because I think it's just so cool to look back on moments and see how they were created. And two, I think it's so intriguing for people because you don't normally see that. There's a lot of brands and just people that are doing cool stuff that no one has idea how it came about because they didn't document it. And being able to document it and show everyone how it's done also allows them to think, okay, these guys are doing it and this is how they're doing it. Like all the sources there, like they can learn from it and do it themselves. And by doing that, they start to see their dreams that they may have, and they start to see that distance between their dreams and what they're doing now a lot, just get smaller and smaller, because they're like, okay, it's not this crazy big company with 1,000 employees and millions of dollars. It's just a small group of kids that just fucking love what we're doing. And we just wait. Can I swear on this? I feel like
fuck yeah. Okay, let's go.
It's just a small group of kids that love what they're doing. And just want to show people how it's all done. And we try to steer away from this whole like the idea of like, because I feel like it's real easy to make stuff super super corny, and I think if like it could easily be presented in that way if it was more of like, oh, a tutorial, like this is how we do this, or this is how we do this. But if we just genuinely just capture raw moments and show people that, they get to understand the entire journey of how we started and how we are with absolute no filter, and I feel like that's the best way to really learn.
It's huge, and like I totally resonate with what you're saying. Like even with the podcast, what we're doing with Beyond the Surface is like for myself personally, in almost like a selfish way. Like I want to capture these moments, while I'm young. I'm 25, same age as you, and hopefully those can be like cool stories that my daughter can one day reflect on when she's, eventually my age. She can be like, whoa, I can listen to my dad when he was,
That's
20,
awesome.
24,
Yeah, I
23
love
and
that.
hear the stories of his life. Like, so there's that whole like storytelling element to it. But yeah, I think it's totally sick what you're doing, man. And would you say like through the selling the clothing and like the tees and the hoodies and all of your products, that essentially like finances basically the other stuff?
Essentially, everything that we do is funded through the sales of our clothing.
Mm.
Besides, see, like for the longest time, we really struggled to get sponsors. Um, Mainly for the reason that a lot of the companies that would come and like approach us or that we would approach would essentially want us to sell something a certain way or present ourselves a certain way to the people, and the one value that we always focus on is always just being absolutely transparent and real. And a lot of companies and businesses just don't like that because they want stuff to be fed a certain way to people. um, but recently, we had a chance to work with Jägermeister, who were super cool and on board because the way that they spoke to us said, "Look, we love what you guys are doing. We don't want you to change anything. Keep doing keep doing exactly what you're doing, and present stuff the exact same way that you do."
Nice.
Because like it's important that people kind of understand that this idea of trying to like shift and like change and like how you present to like sell stuff to people, it all it really does is just push like the consumer further and further away, because what you want to do is just keep it real and authentic because people can see right through all the bullshit, especially now how there's so many fake ads and sponsored stuff that people see and like, okay, well,
Yeah,
that was obviously paid for,
totally.
so people like Jaeger coming to us and saying, yo, keep doing what you're doing, just maybe mention us in it, and the way that they say that and the way that they talk with us is super, super cool. And I love working with people that allow us to do that. But other than that, not too many people, or I guess like corporate businesses, really fuck with us because we keep it 100% transparent and real, which is understandable. But I mean, our priority isn't really pleasing these businesses. It's about pleasing the people.
That's
So
cool.
that's always our
awesome.
number one priority.
And in terms of numbers, bro, like through the clothing company, through Skip the Boat, like, because this is your full-time job, like you don't have, do you have like another sort of 9 to 5 or?
No, this
No.
is my full-time thing now, which is
Awesome.
which, it's a blessing. It's
Bro,
a blessing.
unreal, living the dream, literally.
100%,
It's awesome.
100%.
Like in terms of numbers, like how many people are you engaging with or are you selling your products to on like an sort of average year?
It's really tough to tell because I think the brand is like growing at such like a rapid rate where at times it's like we could do a week where we sell maybe to 20 people, and then we can have a really crazy week where we sell to 2,000 people.
Wow.
But the brand is coming up to nearly $1 million in sales, which is just incredible to even think about. You know what I mean? Like I never really thought that it would happen this. Like I knew eventually everything that I envisioned will happen, but the speed at which it's happening is kind of surreal to me to like really see that there's this much support. But I think the reason that is there was an obvious like gap in this market, and the fact that we were kind of able to come in and fill it has just been the perfect way to kind of just launch this brand, because it's only been around for what, maybe 3.5 years now.
That's crazy.
Which is, yeah, because I mean, I wasn't expecting to achieve what the brand's achieved this quick. So
yeah, that's huge. What have been some like the biggest lessons or mistakes that you made along the way from a business perspective?
Like the thing is, like there's so many, and like even to this day, I'm learning and trying to like get better and better at what I do. I feel like almost every single day I'm making mistakes, but I love that as well because the more mistakes I'm making, the quicker I'm able to learn from them and get better and better and better. But
points you in the right direction, eh?
Oh, 100%, 100%. So yeah, I think a lot of the time people start to see, things that kind of go wrong, and they start to question like, okay, like why is this happening to me? And like, I'm done with it, and they just give up. But for me, it's more just like, all right, why is this happening, and how can we better it to just become better and improve ourselves for the future? So I think it's really a mindset thing. But I think when you have the right mindset of how to really take on challenges that you face, the better it will be for you in the long run, because you're just gonna learn and learn and get better and better at like what you do. So I think it's a mindset thing for sure. But yeah, honestly, there's so many. I mean, it would be hard to pick out one. I feel like.
Is there one that just comes to mind where you're like, fuck, why'd I do that?
Well, I was gonna say, literally like maybe 2 weeks ago, we went to a casino and put it all on red and lost. It's not like a mistake. Like,
how much you put on red?
It was $4,000,
bro.
But the thing is, so like, I mean, we like everything that we do isn't really about the money.
Yeah.
And then the reason why we did that is we had this whole drop that was centered around, all right, look, there's 2 t-shirts, there's a black design, there's a red design, whichever one gets the most sales is the color that we're going to put all of the profit from both t-shirts on. And the idea was that,
such a good idea.
Yeah, and the idea was that if we won, everyone that bought that t-shirt would get their money back, essentially getting a free t-shirt. But no, definitely not a mistake. I just thought, I mean, it hurt a bit at the time.
Do you guys just go home like afterwards?
Yeah, like, it was a real
bit of a
weird vibe, because like there was such a big like build up to it, where we're like, okay, shoot, like, because like I don't ever like gamble, like I never gamble. Yeah. So like even being in a casino was like a weird feeling for me.
It's a strange place.
Yeah, and I was with Val and Zach, and we just walked in. We were so confused because like we walked into it and we're like, whoa, like this is like the craziest thing ever. There's so many like lights going on. There's so many people, and
so many lost souls.
Yeah, for real. And just like the like process of getting up to the point of even placing the bet for us was such like a mission. And it feels like there was this long buildup of doing it, and then essentially, and it was gone.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like an awkward feeling. I was like, whoa, okay, well, that's done. And then just like that walk back was just like the weirdest feeling of it, that we just, it was gone.
That's crazy. Man, imagine the high once you like landed that though. Like what would you have gotten if that did land on red?
Honestly, I was talking about this with Vio, and we said, oh, if it hits, do we go again? And I think, yeah, you know, yeah, but like, I remember like us going back and forth like a million times. Like, okay, if it hits, do we go again? And then if that one hits, do we go again? You know, and it was just like we were thinking so far into the future. Like, oh, if it hits, you know, we could essentially make like 100K if we just keep on going. But we didn't really get that far. It went once and we lost it.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I mean, I guess we'll never know what happens.
Maybe next time, eh? Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. When it comes to, and what I also love about Skip the Boat is you really push the limits with the marketing of your products. Like I've never heard of any like clothing company doing anything like that, where you're gonna like bet if it was gonna be black or white and then return some of those profits back to the people that financed that t-shirt drop, which is just wild. I think you did one as well. What was it? The sort of like pay what you want. So like, what's the sort of, firstly, I guess, how do you come up with those ideas? And second, are they always like financially, do they always work for you? Or sometimes is it like, shit, why do I do? You're shaking your head.
No, well, like they don't always work. A lot of the time they don't work at all. Yeah. Like the thing is, it's never about the money. Like at the end of the day, people will kind of see it as like, why would you do that if you're not going to make money? But the way that we kind of see it is it's an investment. You know, some people would spend $4K on doing like this crazy ad and like getting billboards around. But our 4K that we lost on red was the promotion of getting up to that point. Yeah, so I think it doesn't always work in a sense of like seeing it in a perspective of making money, but it's working in a sense of it's growing the brand.
Yeah.
And even if it's not growing the brand, at least we did it because at least, you know, it was maybe a fun idea.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Where do you get those ideas from?
So those ideas, so it's mainly me and Val that kind of like sit down and we just try to think of ideas. So the casino one was Val's idea from like, geez, it was probably like over a year ago now, where he just called me. I think I was in Christchurch and he called me and he's like, yo, I got this crazy idea. And I like heard it and I was like, okay, now this is cool. But like we never acted on it until literally like 2 weeks ago. I'm like, okay, you know what, let's do it now. But yeah, a lot of the ideas are just from us just, I guess, being in calls and just trying to brainstorm and just try to think of a million things and just stuff around us. You know, I feel like there's so many cool people that are doing super cool stuff that we can kind of draw inspiration from and kind of take other ideas and draw inspiration from that and just see how a million different things around us, just in life in general, that may not even be like related to clothing or events at all, can somehow be implemented into those to have this crazy, insane idea.
Do you have, you probably won't give it away, but have you got any like massive ideas coming up for the end of this year or even moving into the future?
1,000,001. Honestly, there's so many. And I feel like our biggest thing at the moment is trying to find the time to do them all before someone else does them, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because literally the other day we had this idea from ages ago of doing an event this certain way, and then we like drove past as we were driving, and there was a billboard that essentially said that same idea.
Oh wow.
That was ours, but it was way more like commercialized.
Yeah.
And we're like, damn, like maybe if we did just do that idea, it could have been a huge hit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like I feel like sometimes our biggest just issue is trying to get all these ideas out as quickly as possible, but still being able to fund them all and still being able to like push them out with enough space between each other. Because I feel like if you don't act on your ideas, someone else will, and they'll reap the rewards of them.
So true. And like the amount of times throughout the day where you'll be thinking and you're like, man, that's a really good idea. And something will just pop up like this moment of gold. And you're like, oh, I won't write it down. I'll remember it later. And then it comes to like an hour later, you're like, fuck, what was I thinking about? And it's just gone. Like ideas, they almost develop at like the right time for you. And you've really got to like act on it when they arrive in your brain. It's like, what even is an idea? It's crazy. It's basically magic, eh? And like, I guess everything, which is crazy to me, has been birthed out of an idea from someone's head. Like we're just living in the reality of people's ideas, basically.
Yeah, no, it's weird to think about, but yeah, I agree completely. I feel like there's too many people that have like just people that I've met in general have awesome ideas, but they'll never act on them, and it's like, what is the purpose of an idea if you're not even going to act on it? Like it's pointless. It's never it's not worth anything unless there's like a motive behind it and there's action behind it. But I feel like that's a real common thing because I feel like almost everyone is creative in a sense that someone is creative in their own way of whatever it may be. But it's just the difference between those who achieve something versus those who don't really is the action behind those ideas that they have.
Totally agree, man. When it comes to your mindset, like it's very obvious you've got a really rock solid mindset when it comes to like the strategic vision and the creativity which underpins your company. Have you always been really tight with the mindset of the company? Like since the very start, have you always had that really strong like creative vision for where you want to see it like end up?
I think it's a lot to do with like discipline and how strong like your vision for what you see it is. I think when your vision is not as strong, it's kind of difficult to be like, all right, this has to be this way or this has to be this way. But I think when you know exactly what you want, it doesn't matter who you're speaking to or what's happening. It's a pretty simple, straightforward answer for almost everything. Like your thing must align with what you see in your head in order for it to come alive. You know what I mean?
Do you reckon you got taught some of your traits or even like the mindset that you have around your business from anyone in particular? Like, do you have any like role models, like even your parents or?
I think in terms of like discipline and stuff, I learned that a lot from my parents because my parents came from India at like a very young age, at like 20, and they essentially started out with like nothing. So discipline for them in order for like them to be able to feed their family was huge, it was their work ethic that I think I took a lot of like inspiration from, just seeing how they work and how they get things done.
Yeah.
So I think that was definitely a big thing for me in my life, just growing up and seeing how they did. Yeah.
Seeing just like the daily grind day and seeing 100%. Your parents work hard. I think that's so important. What did they do when they came into New Zealand? Like what sort of jobs were they working in?
So I think my dad started off by like working on a farm, and essentially he was getting paid like barely anything, but he got to like stay somewhere for free, and he was just doing it, grinding his way up. And then when my mom came over, I think she, like from what I remember, like I know that they worked a bunch of other things, but from my memory, from like when I was young, my mom's always worked at like a supermarket, and I know my dad's had like a multitude of like different jobs where he worked at like a factory, and then he was a bus driver for a while, and then he went to like a supermarket. But regardless of like what they're like, it's not like they came here and that's what they like dreamt to do or aspired to do. but they knew that that's kind of what they had to do in order to like provide, you know, for their family and a bit of life for their family.
Yeah, it's amazing, eh? Like the balls it takes to jump to another country and just, you know, throw all your eggs in one basket and be like, I'm going to make this happen.
Yeah,
It's cool when you grow up. You can like really appreciate what your parents have done for you, eh?
for sure. Yeah, and I feel like that's a big reason why I feel I should be chasing my dream, because they've sacrificed so much for me to be like in this position, and I feel like if I don't try and at least attempt to chase my dream, it's kind of gone to waste. You know, like I've been put in this position where I have like the freedom to dream, essentially. You know, so I should not like waste it because it's kind of like I guess dishonoring them.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, it's a good way to look at it. When it comes to running your live events as well, like the gigs that you put on, you've had like a few international acts coming through. You've probably been doing that for a couple of years now. The gigs are also free. How the hell does that work, and how do you manage it? Like you get some fucking huge crowds coming through.
Yeah, so we did. It was like maybe a 5 or 6 part series of free shows, and the idea behind it was we were going to go to all of like the major cities and throw a show for free where no one would have to pay anything. We would essentially be paying for all of it out of pocket, and I think after we did all of them, we spent nearly $250,000 in doing so. But to the people, it was a thing where they could experience this music and see what the brand's all about, without having to pay a single cent. You know, and the idea was never like, oh, okay, you know, we're gonna bring this artist over and we're gonna put these artists on board and we're gonna throw this gig in order to like make a shit ton of money and you know and then we'll be rich. It was just solely like, let's bring cool, like-minded people together and let's just see what that does. You know, how the community evolves and how the movement grows just by doing good. So the motive was always just, we're gonna do good and we're gonna do what we believe in. Fuck the money, because if we truly believe in what we're doing, the money's gonna come eventually. You know, like that's not a concern. It'll be there, and when we get it, it will feel so much more like we earned it as long as we do what we truly believe in. Yes, so we brought over Kamiyada from America. He was our first ever artist we brought from America, and he's actually touring with us now. And we brought over DC the Don, we brought over Matt Ox, Christ Dillinger. There was a bunch of artists, and then the big goal was, if we had these big names, we could then put a lot of local talent that we really, really believe in and we think is super, super talented on the bill as well. And that was just going to uplift their careers as well, because if people are coming to see these bigger artists, they're going to have to see these smaller ones as well, you know, if they're going to be there. And it was just kind of a way to promote New Zealand music. And that was always the goal from like the very first show that I ever did. It was just, I stumbled upon these really, really talented NZ artists that I was like, how come no one's ever heard of them? Like, how come these guys aren't being pushed at all? So this was like, maybe the best way to really promote our artists is to get some other artists that maybe bigger, put them on there with them and really try to push their name as well.
What, like in terms of the logistics as well around making an event which is just free, like just rock up, is there like, because I'm sure you've probably had this through a lot of like corporates. I think I saw a video on your Instagram where like venues have been pulled like the week of when they've realized it's like a ticketless event.
Yeah.
Like what's some of the stuff that people might not realize about running a sort of free range event like that? Like what are some of the things you got to watch out for?
Well, the thing for us was that we were really trying to like push the boundaries with our free events. Like we didn't just want to do a free event in a normal venue. You know, like we thought, okay, yeah, like it's cool that it's free and we have these artists and stuff, but like what's really making it special? So our big thing was we want to use venues that are typically not used for shows. So like warehouses and car parks and stuff like that, where like their experience, like their whole experience since they walk in would just be incredible, regardless of the music. At least they're walking into something which
is
normal,
new.
yeah, you know. So I think that taking that into account is what really caused us issues, because we had a bunch of issues in terms of like the council, the police, and just trying to work through that was the biggest pain in the world. I think the last time we did a show in Wellington, we had to move from one warehouse to another, and then when we were in that warehouse, we got kicked out of it 24 hours out because the police were just not like fucking with it at all. And it meant that we had to like try to find like a backup in essentially 24 hours. I think that was the most hectic 24 hours of my entire life. But there's a lot that kind of goes into it. But I think the thing that makes it so much easier is working alongside people that can understand the vision as well. And as long as everyone kind of has a role in that process of trying to put this together,
Mm.
it makes things a way more smoother.
Mm.
Because trying to do all your ideas in your head, and the bigger the ideas get, the harder it is to do it just by yourself.
Mm.
So you kind of need to like outsource and look to people that can understand your vision, which is also another thing, because I find it very difficult to work with people that don't see the vision, you know. But if you find like the right people with like the right mindset, you know, I really believe that kind of anything is possible, you know. And I
Mm.
feel like we've kind of started to like build a team that is almost like a dream team in a sense, where I know that the people that we work with, we can kind of put any idea in our head and bring it to life.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What's like the biggest sort of numbers that you've got at one of your shows?
That's tough. I think it's kind of harder to count with the free shows.
Sure, I guess you could like heat count.
Yeah, but like we would like try and count, but it was just way more difficult because yeah, it was a whole different like aspect of things. But I think we did maybe like around like the 600 mark when we did one in Hamilton, and that was like essentially like in this massive car park, which we just like fully revamped and chucked in like these walls and just had like a massive stage in there, and just felt like just seeing that crowd of people and like the lines of people that line up, because it kind of worked on a basis of like first in first served.
Yeah.
So people would essentially text this number and we would send them the address and would say first in first served.
Mm.
So we would see kids that line up like from the morning at like 10 a.m. just like waiting to come in, and then by the time that we open doors, there would be a line of kids just wrapped around the block.
Crazy.
And just seeing that kind of turnout was just such like a surreal thing, because it's like, all right, we've spent a month just trying to put this together, and to see that this many people want to be in there so bad that they're coming in early, that they're lining up. I'm pretty sure like at the Hamilton show, just as we were about to open doors, it started to like pour down with rain. And I'm like, these kids are still staying out here. Like they don't care. Like they want to be out here because they want to get inside inside the car park.
Crazy.
So yeah, I don't know. I feel like the way that we kind of do things, like it's always been focused and centered around the underground. And I've always preached that it's never about like the number of people, but it's about the energy and what those people are going to bring. And the thing with our shows is whether we have, you know, like 100 people or 1,000 people, it's gonna feel insane, because those 100 people are gonna be going absolutely crazy, and the energy is gonna be there. And I've just found that with these underground shows and with this kind of like genre of music, these people just love feeling like they're a part of something, and they feel special about being in there, and they give these artists like 110% every single time.
What do the international artists think when they get like a taste of probably performing in New Zealand for the first time? I think I saw on your Instagram there was that like, I don't know what he was called, but he was like kind of like skinny white American guy. Like
Yeah, Matt Ox.
Yeah. He just seemed hilarious. I just wanted to like talk to him, mate.
Yeah, he was cool. It was like, I think going into it prior to booking him, I kind of thought I felt like as if he was kind of putting on an act or something.
Yeah.
But like when you meet the guy, that's genuinely
what
like
he's
who
like?
he is.
Because
Yeah.
it almost seemed, when I saw the video, I was like, okay, he must be like playing a character. Like
Nah.
it's a bit of a meme, you know?
Yeah, no, but like that's genuinely who he is, and he has a lot of energy. But they all love it, man. Like everyone that we've ever brought out has just had the greatest time here.
Man.
And we always try to be as like welcoming as possible and really like give them a good experience, you know, outside of the event as well. So yeah, I'm grateful that everyone that we've brought over has just, you know, has had an amazing time. And now that we're touring with Kamayada, who we brought over last year, you know, it's cool that we're able to actually take him around the whole country and show him that.
That's super cool, bro.
Yeah.
What do you reckon that American artist, what do you reckon he's doing right now? If you were to guess.
Probably like smoking weed or something. I don't know. Yeah.
He just seemed like such a trapper, eh?
Yeah. No, he was like a very interesting dude. Like he's cool. He was a cool guy. But yeah, it was real buzzy to see that in person, because like in my head I just always imagined like, oh, it's maybe like an act. But now, like from the moment that we picked him up from the airport, he was exactly how you would imagine him to be.
That's so funny. Have you got any like particular stories when he was like, any funny moments?
Looking over to there. There were a lot of moments, to be honest. I don't know how many I should even talk about, but I mean, there's stories for days. There's so many stories that like I don't know how many he would want me to speak about. Yeah,
Go on,
so
you
so I
got to
felt,
say one now. You got to.
well, I was telling me not to. Nah, like he was a good dude. And he had an amazing time here. I think he went. I think he jumped off the Sky Tower with you know how they do the.
Oh, yeah, I've done that before.
Yeah, so I think he did that, and Shiraz was with him when he did that. I think that was a real buzzy moment because like there's a video of him as he comes down. He's like, "Holy shit, this was crazy!" And he was like super geeked out about it. Um, and then just like experiencing like the NZ like this stuff we have it like going to a dairy and buying like a meat pie or just like
Yeah.
all these like I think Matt Ox one time it was like one of the first days he like went to the dairy and he comes back and he's got like eight like juices with him and he's like, dude, like look at this curry juice, like is the shit good? And it's like all these flavors of juice and he's like so gassed about all these like juices that like we see every single day.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Whereabouts from the States is he from?
I think he's from Philly.
Oh, yeah, true.
Yeah.
Well, different worlds, eh?
Yeah,
Different
for real.
worlds. When it comes to what sets Skip the Boat apart from other like clothing brands, what would those like key three things be?
I think one it's our transparency. No filter. We keep everything 100% real, and we tell people everything that we're doing. You know, and I think people appreciate that. I think another big thing that really sets us apart is I feel like we're always doing something. I think there's a lot of brands where they'll kind of come and go. And I've just seen that from my time being here, where there'll be a real cool brand. I'm like, yo, like their stuff is crazy, and then a month later, like they just go and just disappear. And you know, so I think our like consistency to like always be doing something or always trying to come up with like new ideas to get people involved. And then lastly, I just feel like it's that sense of like community and belonging. I think that's one big thing that we preach, and that we always continue to preach, that you know everyone that we ever meet, like we truly like appreciate them, and we want them to achieve their dreams as much as we get to live our dreams. So just trying to inspire other people and empower them as well to be able to live their dreams is a big thing, and I think that's just generated this amazing community of people that love it and that want to see other people win, which is a big thing that we just don't see in the country. So being able to really go against the grain in that, which is even sad to say that that's against the grain, but being able to do that is amazing. And you know, everyone that's a part of this brand or if a supporter of this brand is just a good fucking person.
Yeah, bro. Like, and obviously the support speaks for itself. I think I saw that video of that drop you did in Auckland. You're like in an ice cream truck. I don't know how you got that ice cream truck.
That was the coolest thing ever,
Bro,
dude.
I couldn't even believe how many people were there. Just like showed up. Can you speak a bit more around like that day and what happened?
That was genuinely like, I feel like that was like one of like the best days of my life. So 24 hours prior to this meetup. So like we advertised like a meetup and like, yo, like come here, we're gonna give out a bunch of shit, and we had like $3,000-$4,000 worth of stock, and we're like, you know what, fuck it, we're just gonna give it out to people. So 24 hours prior to that meet, we dropped like a location and we said, all right, meet us here at this time. And
it's in Auckland, yeah.
Yeah. It was like a random like Wilson car park in Auckland that like we just found, that we just saw like, whoa, this is like the coolest spot. It was so like aesthetically like grunge and everything was so cool. And we weren't really sure on like how many people were really going to pull up to it, because we're like, oh, like maybe there's going to be 5 or maybe there's 500, like, you know, like there was no way to really tell, because it wasn't a ticketed thing, it wasn't anything like that. It was just like, yo, pull up here and we're going to give away a bunch of free shit. And I remember as the day was going along, because I think it was at like 4 p.m, people started like sending me photos and like videos of them already being there. It was like 10 a.m, like 9 a.m, and people like already waiting. I was like, oh shit, like maybe like this is going to be a lot bigger than like even like thinking about, you know. And there were people there, they were like tagging up the walls with STB, and I was like, yo, chill. And they were climbing up on walls and everything. And then we went and got this ice cream truck. So like the story behind that was essentially we found this like company, and they like do parties and birthday parties and all that kind of stuff. And we're like, hey, can we book your guys' like ice cream truck but no ice cream? And they thought it was weird, but they're like, okay, yeah, sure. So they let us go pick up the ice cream truck, and then we got it, and we went to and we started driving over to the spot. And at this time we were maybe like a half an hour away from 4 p.m. And just I start getting a bunch of videos, and my friends are like FaceTiming me and stuff, and they're like, yo, look how many people are here. And it was just like a sea of people. It was insane. Like the whole car park was full of people. And I was starting to freak out. I was like, oh shit, like the cops are gonna see us and they're gonna shut down even before we get there. So we start to like zoom over there. And as we're pulling in, like the cops try to like pull us over. And I was like, fuck it, just go in, just go in, just go in. We'll be sweet. So we drive in and there's just a swarm of people everywhere, and they're all just like screaming, skip the boat, skip the boat. And we
Crazy.
pull up and we open up like the ice cream window. We start throwing out a bunch of clothing to everyone. Just like the thing that really sucked is like I wish we could have given everyone something, but there was just so many people that it would have been impossible. But we just threw out a bunch of shit. And it was just like the most craziest moment ever, because like I think there's a photo of it that someone took, and it's just like this ice cream truck in the middle of a car park, and there's just a sea of people all like crowding around it. And I just thought that was like one of the most craziest things we've probably ever done. It was so insane.
Bro, when I first saw that on socials, I was like scrolling on the gram as you do. I literally thought it was like a rehearsed like music video or like a skit, and like this was all organized and you got everyone, okay, meet at this location, everyone chant, skip the boat. But for that all to happen organically is just wild. So did the police end up having to pull over your ice cream van?
Yeah, so,
and like break it up?
So the police pulled up, and a friend of mine, Mikey, he went over to him. And the officer asked, like, oh, like, what's going on here?
Can I have a free tea?
And then essentially he's like, oh, it's just like a fashion brand. They're doing like a giveaway. And he was super cool about it. Like, he was like, oh, yeah, that's sick. And I think he's stuck around for a bit. And he's like, oh, yeah, this is cool. And then he just dipped. So he was so nice about it. I think, like, at the very end, like, as we left, there's like 4 police cars that came and like then like shut it down, which is kind of perfect time because we were out by then. But I think it was because like people started like doing like drag like races and shit like in the car park, which is but yeah, the cops came and like shut it down like straight after we left. So I was like, we got in there, threw out a bunch of shit, gave everyone a bunch of things, and then just dipped, and we were sweet.
Yeah, it's man. Yeah. Just goes to show like the power of like harnessing social media in like today's age.
It's crazy.
It is super crazy. Like, how do you utilize social media, and like what are like the top ingredients that you have found to be successful in like navigating or creating that community that you have?
I think it's all really about like creating hype. And the thing that I don't think people really understand is that like almost like a week on social media is essentially like a year. So I really value like consistency. Like I've posted nearly almost every single day for like the past 2 years.
Bro, I like respect to you. It's so much work. Like I find it with like the podcast, getting clips out and stuff. We've got Ashton, which is doing an awesome job, but like, fuck, it's like a full-time job, bro. Like pumping out the content and even just make sure there's a story up. Man, it's a lot.
Yeah, it's exactly. And it's about finding like the right like balance of like good quality content and quantity as well. Because like you don't just want to be pushing out shit. Otherwise, like it's pointless. So it's like I really value quantity, but it has to be like the quality has to come with it. But that's just a thing that's like within me, where like discipline is very important. So like I understand that every single day I have to be posting, you know, and if it's not every single day, you know, it's gotta be every second day. But like for the past 2 years, it's been almost every single day, just because I know that goes such a long way for people. Because if I'm gone for a week or something, it's gonna feel like, oh, the brand's fully disappeared.
Yeah. So
it's constantly just like showing up and being there and posting, so like people see that, okay, this is still happening. Oh, okay, this is happening. This is happening. I think that's just crucial, and I think people really like undervalue like the importance of like consistency.
100%. I think like my favorite piece, which I've seen you post, has been, I think it was like one day you like posted this video and it was really serious, and you're like, shit, you know, I don't know if I can do this business anymore. Running into like sort of redundancy over here, gonna go bankrupt basically. And I was like, shit, I think you're like, well, I'll post more about it tomorrow. And I was like, man, I saw this. I was like real gutted for you. I didn't even meet you, didn't even know you. But I was like, that's so fucking sad. I was like, he's running all these live shows, pumped everything into it. It must have just ran out of cash and can't like, you know, create any more clothing. And then I was scrolling on Instagram the next day and I see an image of like the Island Boys. And they're like, yo, what's up, fam? We just acquired Skip the Boat. Like, I was like, fuck, that's genius. It's so good.
Yeah, no, that was an April Fool's prank that they played on everyone. And surprisingly, a bunch of people fell for it. Even
Me,
like
I fell for it.
Yeah, but like even to this day, like after we told everyone that was an April Fool's prank, people still come up to me like, yo, like I thought you sold the brand to the Island Boys.
No way.
I'm like, nah, man. But like it was weird because like it kind of backfired in a way. Where so I dropped that Island Boys video, and instantly we lost like nearly like 1,000 followers. Like people just started unfollowing. Like, what, man? Fuck
Because
this.
it
Like,
was real.
yeah, and they were like real pissed off about it. Like, man, like fuck you guys. Like, give it back to Herman. This is fucked up. And they were like fuming about it. And so it kind of backfired in that way, but it didn't really, because like I just thought it was funny as fuck. So like,
good, bro.
yeah, and they kind of created like attention as well. And then I think because I felt bad, we like dropped like this $10 hat where we made like no money. I think we started like losing shit on it because it was so cheap, and it said like shit the bit, and it was like an April Fool's like drop. But yeah, and people to this day are still like, whoa, dude, I thought you sold the brand. I was like, oh man.
They're like, bro, those Island Boys, like, fuck, how are they even like a real person? And they're like, do you see a lot? They're like hooking up with each other and stuff now?
Yeah, it's crazy. No, it's like straight up like a cartoon. That shit's crazy,
bro. It's a lot of commitment to get like tattered like that, and just tripped out. Like, fuck, they must make a lot off those cameos, though.
Oh, I bet 100% they do.
How much do you guys have to pay for that?
I think it was like 300-400.
Shit, that's pretty expensive.
Yeah, and the guy like fucked it up as well. Like I gave him like a script to say, and it was so bad because like there was a part I was like, oh, like do this, and he like read that out loud, and I was like, oh. But then I just like chopped it up, and I tried to make it seem as like legit as possible.
Damn, probably not the smartest tools in the shed, eh? Far out, that's crazy. My favorite piece of like from one of your drops is the tee I'm wearing at the moment that says the freedom to dream is a privilege in itself. This is like some of the most uplifting like pieces of clothing which I've basically stumbled across. Basically every time I'm wearing this t-shirt and I'm out in public, people usually stop me on the street, or they acknowledge the t-shirt in some way and say, hey, that's really cool. And it's one of the tees, you really see people staring at it when you're wearing it.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to get a bit more understanding around what like the ethos and the messaging is behind these kind of t-shirts which you've made.
Well, with like all of like the quote ones and everything, like the idea is, I mean, it's essentially like being able to like spread a message, like almost every single time. Like anytime you're wearing it, you're promoting something that you truly believe in. And yeah, and the idea for that one, it kind of came about. It was a long time ago, but like it was essentially like, I think I was like complaining about something, and I was like, wait a minute, but like at least like I'm able to be able to like dream, and that's just like a huge privilege of being able to even have dreams, because there's people in the world that simply don't get that, like their biggest thing in life is solely just trying to be able to like feed their family. So the fact that we get a chance to live and dream of what we want to do, it's like, why would we not do it? Like we're in this amazing position to be able to dream, so we should dream. And those t-shirts are just a huge hit. Like people love them. I think the one that says "From me to you, I hope your dreams come true." That's a huge one. We got billboards for that and everything because we just truly believed in that like message. And then we did one, which is probably like the best drop that we ever did. It was the green one, and it was all to like raise money for like mental health and everything, and people like really jumped on that and they loved that. So I don't know. It started off with the red one, and then people just really loved it, and they loved being able to wear something that just had a message so clear and so just out there that anytime you're like on the street or anything, like people can just see it, and like it can.
It makes you feel a certain way.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's gonna kind of like trigger something in you to like think in a certain way or think of something.
Yeah.
So I think it's very impactful.
100%. And it's so unutilized. Like usually with clothing and t-shirts in particular, you might see designs or just writing of like the logo of the brand, but actually having like a message which is designed to be read by others, which isn't like a piss take, because you also get those like, Mr. Thank You sort of like t-shirts which just say outrageous shit. But like something which is hugely positive and especially sort of triggers into like that emotional pull from people. Yeah, it's awesome, bro. I truly love that quote, and yeah, it's such an awesome way to do it.
Yeah, well, like like one thing I've always prioritized, and the reason that I started doing the clothing was like I wanted to tell stories, and even though like these ones are like a lot more like in your face stories, almost every single drop I do like has a meaning behind it or has like a purpose behind it that is trying to tell a certain story of something. And you know, I've always just said that it's a lot easier to sell stories to people than it is like products. And I think that's why people really support the clothing that we do, because they're getting a chance to wear something that they're feeling, you know, and it's done in a way where it's not always as obvious as like words on a tape, but it could be a photo that kind of represents something, and it has an image that kind of makes them feel a certain way in the story that we're trying to like push out to the world. So yeah, I mean, like, you know, you essentially are like what you wear in a sense, you know, like to an extent. So you want to be wearing something that represents you in a certain way.
It's a really good way to look at it. What's next, bro? What's let's set some goals.
Yeah,
What's coming up?
so we still got 3 more shows of our tour. So we got Wellington tomorrow night, and then we're off to the South Island for Christchurch and Dunedin.
Yeah.
So we're gonna wrap up this tour, be done with that, and then there's just so many ideas that like we just gotta pick and choose where we want to go with it. You know, a big thing for us is like really trying to like expand the brand as much as possible now, and just really like cultivate like the people that are supporting us. Um, so yeah, I mean, at this point we have like a huge list of things that are like, all right, to-do list, and there's just pages of it. So it's essentially just going back to the drawing board, seeing what kind of position we're in, and you know, figuring out what the right next move is for us and where we kind of go as a brand. But yeah.
In the event space, like, I'm sure lots of people have said this before, but like, would like festivals be something which you consider?
Yeah, it's been on the cards for like a very long time, and the goal for me was always to do a festival with 50,000 people, you know, and I think with the experience that we've kind of learned so far, and the experience that we'll continue to learn, I think, you know, that goal is very much achievable one day. But the process and the step up from just like shows and the gigs that we've been doing to an actual festival is such a big step, where it's like if we're doing it, we have to do it right.
Yeah, totally.
And it just requires so much money to like really make it the way that we want to do it, because if we were to do it, we want to make it special for everyone, you know, like it's got to mean something, it's got to be something really special for the people. So it's just trying to like piece these all together and figure out where it's best to do it, how we want to do it, like what the aesthetic is, and like what the vision for this festival really is. But it's definitely something that will happen one day.
Fire
100%.
Festival 2024. Let's go. Did you see that doco?
I did. Yeah. Yeah, I think I watched it a couple of times. Yeah. That would be a nightmare. So
It's wild, eh?
yeah, I mean, like the idea of it was insane. It was super cool. The execution, not quite.
The marketing was like world class as
Oh,
well.
yeah.
Like, you know, supermodels on the beach,
Yeah.
like Hailey Bieber or whatever her name was before marrying Justin. And then, yeah, you could just see the anxiety from the poor dude like 2 weeks out.
Yeah.
Like, how the hell am I going to make this work?
Yeah, I can't imagine the amount of like stress that they would have been in.
Oh, dude,
under
super
that, but-
crazy. Cool. We'll wrap up with some quick fire questions, but before we do, where can people stay in touch with you and your mahi, bro?
Our main platform is Instagram, so it's all at Skip the Boat. We have a website, skiptheboat.com. But yeah, essentially, if you search up Skip the Boat, you're gonna find us. You know, we're on YouTube as well. We got Facebook. But yeah,
Man, and we'll chuck some links in the description wherever you're listening or watching this episode. Herman, what brings you true happiness?
what brings me true happiness? I think what brings me true happiness is the people around me and the moments that we create.
Advice you wish you knew about when you were younger?
Don't quit. Just believe in what you believe in. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't do something, and stick with exactly what your vision is, because whatever it is, you can do it.
What does legacy mean to you?
Legacy. There's an inside joke with Val where he talked about sorry. Legacy for me is creating something that's gonna live forever. And doing that the right way as well.
If you could change one thing in New Zealand, what would this be?
The way we see other people doing cool things. I wish we were a lot more supportive, and I wish we saw by them winning, we're winning as well.
Amen, brother. What do you believe is the main thing that is holding back young people in New Zealand?
Old people telling them that they can't do what they want to do.
Nice. And we'll finish up with a quote. I think it might be your quote. Don't know who wrote the quote on there, but it's a simple one. We mentioned it before. The freedom to dream is a privilege in itself. Cheers, bro.